One of the most striking details that we learned from this press conference were, again, about those bullet casings and the inscriptions, "Hey, fascist," the words "Bella Ciao." What do you see as the significance or what the message is that he's trying to communicate here?
Really, I would need to actually see these words in the way that they are on the bullet casings and the gun to make a proper interpretation. I'm kind of overwhelmed with how immature it all sounds, and that there is no really chronic theme. I think Brandy really nailed it. You have to make of it what you want.
So, the delusional psychosis by liberal blue anon conspiracy theorists is not getting better, it's getting worse. These people are in full-blown denial of reality at this point. Although it's worth noting that their overall trend from the beginning has been to essentially blame Charlie Kirk for what happened to him, right? And you've heard these arguments. We as the right wing, apparently it is our fault that their side keeps trying to kill us. They, of course, said that Charlie was an evil guy. In our eyes, he was a racist, fascist Nazi, and therefore that justifies the assassination. Now, most Americans found that opinion to be genuinely appalling and crazy and deranged, because it is. Hence why perhaps they shifted a little bit away from that, still keeping the overall theme, but now making it about gun control. You even heard prominent leftist politicians imply that, well, because Charlie was pro-gun and because he disagreed with us on this political issue, he had it coming because he never supported the so-called common sense gun safety legislation. This is, of course, despite the fact that the shooter did not even use a supposed high-powered, high-caliber assault rifle. It was a Mauser bolt-action 30-06. It's not even semi-automatic, because they always make a big deal out of that, not even knowing what the word means. It is not a so-called assault rifle. It's a weapon from the World War I era, so I'm not sure, because they never define what their gun policy actually is, but I'm not sure now if the stance is to overturn the entire Second Amendment and ban all guns, despite the fact that even still we don't know if that would have prevented this shooting. But of course, we understand these people in reality are bad faith scumbags. They're just trying to find a reason to victim blame Charlie Kirk for literally getting shot, and that's what this is all about. However, today they're in a little bit of a struggle, because now that the news has come out as to who the shooter is, he obviously is in custody, and we now know it was a 22-year-old male by the name of Tyler Robinson, and indeed, he was a pro-Antifa radical. They're just spinning around and saying, no, that's not true, right? You unironically see a lot of this, by the way. Just open lies about how the guy, first of all, was not a radical leftist. He was a white male Republican. Just to recap, and we'll go over that information, but he literally wrote, "Hey, fascist, catch" on the bullet casings. He also drew the Antifa symbol. Okay, his family said he was left-leaning and said that he thought Charlie Kirk was hateful, etc. But again, these people just totally out of touch with reality. I also further want to explain that their little stupid conspiracy theory doesn't even make any logical sense. You know, it'd be one thing to say, we think there's more to the story. Maybe someone else was involved, maybe even a foreign country, all these different areas of speculation. It's another to say that a Republican Trump supporter shot another Republican Trump supporter because he was a supporter of that person. Is that what happens, right? You support someone so much that you kill them? You know, I would think that a basic prerequisite of being a supporter of someone includes the fact that you didn't try to kill them. It would almost be as deranged as saying that a Trump supporter shot Donald Trump on July 13th, 2024 in Butler, Pennsylvania. Oh, wait, these delusional cuckoo said the exact same thing. So there you have it. But we'll talk about this. We'll react to this. We'll, of course, prove all of these people wrong. And I like to point out this is coming from a lot of places. A lot of liberals are saying this, or they're intentionally spinning the story. They're saying he's from a Republican family, therefore he was a Republican. That's not how it works. He was an individual person as well, but we'll talk about that. I also want to show you, because we didn't cover some of these stories, what the progressive squad politicians said in reaction, because you can see they're paying lip service to the exact same radical lunatics currently online. who are cheering what happened here. And this is, of course, repeating a common theme I've been talking about, which is the Democratic Party is going to try to say things like, we condemn political violence, we're not associated with this. But when you have such a huge facet of their radical base that keeps on pushing, they won't condemn it, they won't push back, they constantly dog whistle at these people, that the calls there to tone down the temperature are ultimately not all that serious. And yes, the radicals, lunatics online, and the Democrat Party itself, much more closely connected and responsible for one another than they like to put it out to be. So we'll get into all of it, guys. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. And with that said, I want to start, because we didn't play it again, with the comments in response to Charlie Kirk's tragic passing from Ilhan Omar, who essentially just went on here to demonize him, saying that, quote, he downplayed George Floyd, he opposed Juneteenth. Which apparently in the overall leftist framework, she's not going to say it, but this is what a lot of people believe. Those are apparently offenses that warrant the death penalty, according to a huge facet of deranged, ill, sick liberal activists. So take a listen. Here's Ilhan Omar's wonderful eulogy for Charlie Kirk.
What I do know for sure is that, you know, Charlie was someone who once said, you know, guns save lives after a school shooting. Charlie was someone who was willing to debate and downplay the death of George Floyd in the hands of Minneapolis police.
I think he called him a scumbag.
Right, have no regard, downplay slavery and what Black people have gone through in this country by saying Juneteenth should never exist. And I think, you know, there are a lot of people who are out there talking about him just wanting to have a civil debate.
Complete rewriting of history.
Yeah, there is nothing more effed up, you know, like than to completely pretend that, you know, his words and actions have not been recorded and in existence for the last decade or so.
Well, let me put it more clearly. What she's trying to argue is something that you hear from a lot of leftists, which is speech is violence. Your words incite violence against me, and that's why, therefore, logically speaking, it's justified to go back against you. I don't think I should have to explain how crazy that is. I don't think I should have to go into why it's not okay to claim that because someone is, for instance, not a supporter of Juneteenth, that means they deserve it, okay? You know, you can't just define what a civil debate is and isn't based on, oh, I disagree with your ideas. You know, anyone who's not liberal enough, according to Ilhan Omar, apparently it's okay for them to get shot. Is that what she's saying? I don't know, right? But it is what it is. I just want to point out to people, because we're already familiar with all this garbage. And again, this is how leftists think. Like, it's not a small thing. It's not some fringe. It's not some random Chinese or Russian bot like the governor of Utah tried to say, or were the people inciting all the stuff online. No, this is the mainstream belief of the Democrat Party. That is an elected official. That is a congresswoman, one of the most well-known congresswomen in America, spouting that same exact argument. So just make that clear, right? We're not talking about something small here. We're talking, like, we've gone over the polls, actually. 50% of liberal voters in America believe that assassinations of political figures like Donald Trump or Elon Musk would be justified. They have studied this. You've seen it online, by the way. You see it even, I'm sure many of you, the way it's being spoken about in real life. It's not exactly all that secretive, right? It's pretty widespread. It's in every state in this country, and that's how it goes, right? So Ilhan Omar, just speaking on behalf of her constituents. That's how they feel in reality, you know? But again, Democrat Party, not that distant from this type of garbage. That said, you see AOC here making a similar argument. She's going to hone in on the gun control factor, basically saying that, as many have said, oh, Republicans need to give up their guns because left-wingers won't stop trying to shoot them, apparently, is the argument. So take a listen. Here was AOC's response to Charlie Kirk's passing.
People can finger point all they want. Look at the record. Look at the actions of what we are doing. I don't think a single person who has dedicated their entire career to preventing gun safety legislation from getting passed in this House has any right to blame anybody else but themselves for what is happening.
So you guys got that? According to AOC, we cannot blame the radical leftists, many of whom probably like her, that keep on promoting the idea and in many cases are actively committing political violence. It's the guns. It's the Republicans' fault that, again, same argument. See, even if they put it in different ways, some will say it's because Charlie Kirk was a bad guy. Some will say it's because of the guns. But ultimately, it comes back to the central argument. It's your fault that our supporters keep on attacking you, right? Because also, apparently, political assassinations do not occur in any country outside the United States where guns are illegal, right, AOC, right? Just stupid. But again, bad faith. We shouldn't even engage with it. But that said, I now want to transition to show you today what some of these characters are saying in response. So let's start this segment by making it abundantly clear. We've gone over these facts before, but who Robinson, who this shooter actually was, and what he wrote and what his family said about him. Because we're about to show you a bunch of left-wingers just blatantly lying about this. So just to really briefly recap, again, he wrote things like, "Hey, fascists, catch," in 3 down arrow symbols, which, by the way, if I want to pull it up here, is the Antifa symbol. I'll just show you that so you can see, right? See, that is a common symbol of Antifa. We know what that means. Further, singing "Oh Bella Ciao," which is a famous Italian socialist anti-fascist song. This guy's a leftist. Let's really briefly recap that. Let's confirm the fact that this was spoken by Utah Governor Spencer Cox after the official investigation, the FBI and all that, so that there's no dispute over who this guy was.
The rifle was determined to be a Mauser Model 98 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle. The rifle had a scope mounted on top of it. Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle. Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices, bulges, capital OWO, what's this?" ? Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist!" ! Catch! ! Up arrow symbol, right arrow and symbol, and 3 down arrow symbols. A second unfired casing read, "Oh Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao Ciao," and a third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO."
And by the way, we showed this in the last video, but if you further listen to the press conference, his family also confirms he viewed Charlie Kirk as a hateful person, and he started to get involved and radicalized into politics in the past few years. So again, this is not really complicated, right? This is not up for debate. This is not confusing. It's not an ambiguous thing where, hey, you know, some things point in one way, some things point in the other way. It's like very blatantly obvious. Again, "Hey fascist, Bella Ciao," etc., etc. He drew the Antifa symbol. He's just screaming that to the world. Now, if Democrats want to argue, oh, he just said that, but really he was a Republican. Okay, explain why his family neither said he was a Republican. Explain why, too, by the way, voter registration records, which have now been found of him, show he was not registered as a Republican, right? He was registered as unaffiliated or independent. So it's not that confusing. But I want to show you the way liberal influencers are now reacting to all of this. So let's go to this guy. I'm sure you've seen he's an infamous anti-Trump influencer for the past almost decade now. But from Brooklyn Dad, he says, well. The person who shot and killed Charlie Kirk, quote, "Not trans, not an immigrant, not a radical leftist, just a straight white male. Where are the apologies? I can't hear any over all these crickets." Well, I don't know what crickets you're listening to, but we're speaking very loudly here. And indeed, he may have been a straight white male, that's true, but he was a radical leftist. He clearly was a radical, like, again, Antifa on the gun. Hey, fascist. How much more, his family said so too, by the way, how much more clearly can you state this, right? But no, we're just going to ignore that, guys. He was straight white male, therefore, you know, that's what it is. I don't understand, by the way, I know some people were saying he was trans. We never said that, okay? We never even suspected that. The suspicion we did have it is someone who is on the left wing, okay? So yes, you can be not trans, you can be not an immigrant, and still be a radical leftist. I know that's like really complicated for people to understand. They don't understand nuances or complexities to anything. But like, again, it is really that simple, okay? You have from Art Candy too, by the way. MAGA repeatedly blamed immigrants, trans people, and Democrats for Charlie Kirk's murder. Crickets when they found out that the 22-year-old Tyler Robinson is a white Mormon from Utah from a gun-loving Republican family. So you're going to hear a lot of this. First of all, I don't believe he's Mormon. I don't believe he's Christian. I don't believe he's anything because that's not something that any of them would do, right? I'm pretty sure it's against Mormonism to, be committing political assassinations, but even then, okay. So you're going to hear this a lot. Oh, his family were pro-gun Republicans. Okay, and what exactly does that prove? Now, I'm not here to exonerate the family by any means. I'm not saying either way that they should also be charged for crimes. They should be investigated. You should see if they played any role. Did they know beforehand? Just good faith investigation on that front. But if it's the case that this is just a normal pro-gun Republican loving family, then what is the argument there? So you're saying that he came from a nice family and he was radicalized by people on your side to become this mentally ill lunatic who then went out and committed murders and assassinations. Like, do you think that makes you look good? Do you think that's a defense for your side, right? Because by this argument, if he had stayed true to his Mormon, gun-loving Republican family, he wouldn't have committed this act. But guess what? He was radicalized by your side. So if anything, it's a strong argument as to how leftism, your ideas, by your own logic, are poison and should be left out of nice, peace-loving families. Because this is apparently what happens. Again, do you really want to go down this route of argument, folks? Because just because the family was Republican doesn't mean that he was Republican. Like, I know that's complicated to understand, apparently, but there are widespread cases of kids getting radicalized by you people online, by the universities, etc. It's not really a complicated issue to explain. Another one from Alex Cole. All that rage, hate, and anger towards liberal from MAGA for the past 48 hours, and it turned out to be one of their own. Holy blank. Again, he was not one of us. He was one of you. What is that? Oh, because he was white? Because there's no white Democrats out there, right? The last freaking president was not a white Democrat. Okay, I don't know, right? But this is how brazenly they're lying, and you're seeing this all over social media, okay? It's not like a small thing. They're spreading widespread misinformation on this, which is exactly why we're responding to it. This guy right here says, he goes further, not just a straight white male, a white Christian conservative man took a gun and shot Charlie Kirk. If you support Charlie Kirk, are you still going to maintain the narrative that it was the left? Again, the answer here is yes, because he was not a Christian conservative man. They're just completely making this up, okay? All the evidence points that he was clearly a radical leftist. The witnesses say this. The evidence, there's forensic evidence the guy was an Antifa supporter. Clearly, this is a MAGA Republican. I have an IQ of 5. But it's not stupidity. It's pure dishonesty because these people are disingenuous scumbags. Like, it really is that simple. Even Harry Sisson, by the way. Okay? Let's push you more even towards the mainstream people. Harry Sisson says, clearly the shooter is not trans or an immigrant or any of the other labels MAGA prematurely assigned him over the past 2 days. Just to be clear, you will not find one single case of me claiming that he was trans or an immigrant, okay? What I did suspect is that he was a leftist who was against Charlie Kirk. Guess what he was? A leftist who was against Charlie Kirk. It wasn't really all that crazy of an idea, right? Radicalized, maybe. But he grew up in a conservative state with a pro-gun family who are Republicans. We don't know motive. Let's stop guessing. Again, you hear this argument. He grew up in a conservative state. Okay. And what? His family was pro-gun. Oh, and what? He was radicalized. I don't even get I don't get what they're even trying to say, right? But furthermore, we don't know a motive. Maybe legally we can't say that in terms of the court of law, but it's pretty obvious, first of all. Secondly, I'd like to point out, Harry Sisson actually edited his tweet. Originally, he said, clearly the shooter was not a crazy liberal or trans or immigrant. He took out the crazy liberal part because, newsflash, he was a crazy liberal. Fact check, true. Okay. Marc Lamont Hill, by the way, a crazy race communist here, says that, you may be familiar with him, he has a show and all that. So Charlie Kirk's killer was a straight, white, cis Christian male from a Republican family. Wow. Notice how deliberately they're cherry-picking the facts here, right? Because you can't say that he actually was conservative. That's just blatantly untrue. He clearly was a leftist. I wouldn't even say that he is Christian by any means, but he came from a Mormon family. Okay, even if you want to say that. From a Republican family. Notice the framing, because they want to directly address the fact that when you describe him, he was leftist. He was leftist. Okay. Let's move on here. And yeah, you basically get the idea. So that is, of course, the Blue Anon speech of today. Again, despite very clear and obvious evidence, these scumbags are just going to intentionally lie about all of it. And they keep claiming we have crickets. It's like a memo went out in left-wing circles. No, we're saying loudly, he was leftist. Do I have to scream it? He was leftist. Okay, got it. And of course, at the same time, amidst all of these concerns, we're seeing just a blatant distraction by folks like CNN. Of course, now once again saying everything is our fault. Now the real concern is the quote unquote chilling threats that they're receiving from young MAGA Americans, according to them. So apparently, right, the real problem is not the fact that a radical leftist just shot someone. It's the fact that the right is angry about it, according to them.
Out front next, the breaking news, a frantic manhunt for Charlie Kirk's killer, nearly 30 hours on the run. How did the shooter make a getaway? There are new clues tonight, big developments in the manhunt as we understand it at this moment. And an eyewitness who asked Kirk a question moments before he was shot and killed joins us. What he saw and heard in those seconds leading up to the murder. And warning, it's about to get a lot worse in this country. That is a chilling threat from some of MAGA's youngest and most passionate members tonight. Let's go out front.
Yeah, just so typical. Don't you know, we're the real problem. They just shot us, but the problem is us. Let me be abundantly clear. Okay, I'm not calling for violence. I'm not calling for retaliation. It is wrong. It is further counterproductive, right? It will not take us anywhere to retaliate with random acts of violence, okay? So I condemn that in the strongest possible terms. I think right now it set back the left a lot. It made a martyr out of Charlie Kirk. To do the same thing is, again, not only wrong, but also unconstructive and counterproductive. But all of that in mind, it honestly seems to me like the left is intentionally trying to push people's buttons. Like they're Gen Z term, they're rage baiting us on purpose, right? Because there's no greater way to radicalize normal peace-loving people than to kill a peaceful political activist, then celebrate his killing widespread, like not silently, just go out and scream from the rooftops how much he deserved it and how much, oh, you so-and-so are next, right? And then to turn around and say that like we're the problem and we're the bad guys when we're literally victims in this situation, So ultimately it is what it is, but that seems very abundantly clear to me. It's everything is our fault apparently, and it's like they're trying to spark a reaction. They keep warning us that there's going to be retaliation and we need to tone down the temperature, but they're not actually toning down the temperature. They're like rising up the temperature, and really, I think what these people are hoping is that the right wing will do something. Again, disavow, do not do that. But these people are clearly like trying to egg on and root for that to happen, so that way they can shift the blame and say that we're the real violent people. That's why, again, I say, do not do something. Do not retaliate. But it is very clear that is exactly what these scumbags are rooting for. They're not rooting for an end to the violence. They're rooting just to be able to shift the blame is essentially what's going on here. And that's what you're seeing across the board, right? Whether it's this, whether it's to lie and say that the shooter was a Christian conservative male based on not only no evidence, like mountains of forensic evidence to the contrary, but there you have it. So needless to say, I don't think Charlie Kirk would be surprised if he could see any of this. And I don't think he's surprised from upstairs watching all of this. But that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. And until next time, God bless and peace.